Many money service businesses operating in Canada, or known as MSBs, have been surprised this year with new law, RPAA, Retail Payment Activities Act, and its regulations that will require the MSBs to register under a new framework, supervisory framework, implemented by the Bank of Canada. Today, I would like to clarify who needs to apply, how to apply, what are the new regulations, what the process entails, how we can help you, and certain insights that we can provide as MSB service provider in Canada for the last 5 years. So before we jump into the Bank of Canada, it's important to understand that the regulations under the RPAA come into force in addition to the existing regulations framework of FINTRAC. FINTRAC is a federal regulator of money laundering, prevention of financing of terrorism, as well as just generally dealing with the proceeds of crime. And FINTRAC regulates under the provisions of PCMLTFA Act, which is an abbreviation of proceeds of crime and money laundering, etc., etc. Every MSB that wanted to operate in Canada, or every business that wanted to provide certain services, whether money-related, gold, silver, bullion related, currency exchange, would need to register with FINTRAC, and that regulatory regime was there in place for many years. As of November 1st, 2024, a new set of regulations and registration will apply to certain, not to all MSBs, and I'll talk about it towards the second half of today's presentation. So under this new regulation, Bank of Canada is essentially a federal regulator of financial institutions. It is concerned with the protection of clients' funds being dealt with by the MSBs, as well as compliance of general financial transactions with the regulations implemented towards other financial institutions in Canada. And the Bank of Canada will operate under this separate act, RPAA, and the regulations under the RPAA. So what is the MSB registration process entailed before November 1st and will entail after November 1st? So up until November 1st, 2024, every business that wanted to operate MSB in Canada would be very advised, highly suggested to incorporate, obtain CRA business number. Other forms of business operations were allowed, such as partnership or sole proprietorship, will concentrate on incorporation, prepare corporate documents, bylaws, resolutions, registries, just as required from any other business corporations in Canada. The business then will need to apply for the registration with FINTRAC and prepare a comprehensive compliance program, some of which is generic, just like you have in many other countries, AML, KYC, reporting of large sum transactions, other specifically designated by the regulations of FINTRAC, such as ministerial directive, biannual trading plan, risk-based assessment, and many more. As of November 1st, 2024, many or most of the MSBs will need to apply for an additional registration under the Bank of Canada, provide a lot of information, I'll talk about it in a moment, but also to update its compliance program by adding additional policies, mostly concerned with the risk management and incident prevention. What does the registration with the Bank of Canada entails? First of all, timelines. They're essentially 3 periods. I'll talk about it in a moment, but put them very simply. From November 1st to November 15, every business operating MSB services in Canada that is subject to RPAA must file its application if it wants to continue to operate its operations without interruption. Anyone who files after November 15th will need to wait a certain period of time. I'll talk about it in a moment. During the registration process, you will need to provide multiple information about your corporate structure, org chart, affiliated or related entities, third parties, business operations, including description of your business operations. And at the end of the registration, you will need to pay the registration fee of $2,500. Yes, it is different from FINTRAC that always was a free registration. Bank of Canada collects 2,500 Canadian dollars from each registrant. So if previous set of regulations and requirements for the registration was applicable to every MSB, Bank of Canada recognizes a certain group of MSBs that will require to provide additional information and additional support to their business operations. Those in particular are MSBs that hold clients' funds. What does it mean, hold funds? First of all, those who provide bank accounts, private bank accounts, electronic bank accounts, whether in Canada or outside of Canada, operating under Canadian MSBs. They, of course, are considered holding clients' funds. The second type is providing electronic wallets, e-wallets, to their clients, very similar to bank accounts, whether platform or app-based, and those that retain the funds under their control for future instructions. In this category, to put it very simply, fall every business that takes clients' funds without the transfer instruction being attached to that payment. So if I give you my funds, along with the instruction, transfer it to another country, exchange it to another currency, do with it something, you're not considered holding my funds, even if it takes you 5-10 business days to process the transaction. If, on the other side, I give you my funds, whether into electronic wallet, into pooled account, or a separate bank account, and the money sits there until future instructions, that is considered that you've been holding my funds and therefore subject to this additional layer of regulations by the Bank of Canada. It will require you to provide certain information about safeguarding of clients' funds, keeping the funds in a trust account, alternatively having a insurance policy or insurance bond that covers the maximum amount of clients' funds held by you, by your corporation, at any given period of time. So additional reporting, but also security requirements will apply to every MSB that holds clients' funds. Additional requirement that was introduced by the RPAA is updated compliance program. Essentially, as I already said, the Bank of Canada is concerned with the safety of the client's funds. So first and foremost, risk prevention program, the program that will identify different risks applicable to business operations of each MSB, and then will provide solutions depending on your types of operations, risks that you have identified, and prevention mechanisms that you have implemented. Another policy that you must put in place is a written policy with regards to its incident prevention, identification, and reporting. Now, what are the insights that we came to while reviewing the regulations of Bank of Canada, and how do they apply to your business? First of all, timeline. So as I said, essentially Bank of Canada recognizes three separate periods. First one, window of opportunities or grandfathering period would be from November 1st to November 15th, during which every business that supplies their information and applies for the registration, pays the $2,500 registration fee, can continue operate without interruption. You don't need to wait for the approval. You just keep on operating as if nothing happened. Less $2,500, of course. Those businesses that apply between November 15th and September 7, 2025, apply during what Bank of Canada calls transition period. You have to wait for 60 days before you start operating, but then you can start operating. Don't ask why, there's no explanation. So essentially, you don't wait for the approval, you just wait 60 days, and then you start operating. And finally, the effective period that will start after September 7th, 2025. Every business that applies for the Bank of Canada registration will need to wait until the application is approved in order to start operating their businesses. Additional insights applicable to certain MSBs. The first group is pretty straightforward. Any MSBs that do not deal with electronic funds transfers. So old school businesses, brick and mortar businesses, currency exchange stores, gold, silver, bullion stores that are required to register under FINTRAC to report large cash transactions, but do not provide any international transfers, electronic currency exchange. They do not need to register. They are officially, explicitly, expressly exempt from the application of RPAA. Another group of businesses which is still exempt from the RPAA is the businesses, MSBs, offering crypto services, exclusively crypto services. So those crypto trading platforms, crypto exchange, they seemingly fall outside of the definition of funds as they're being used by the Bank of Canada regulations for the definition of who needs to register. Essentially, it says dealing with Canadian currency international currencies and other units, but the other units have not been designated or defined by the regulations at this point, so cryptocurrency exclusively do not need to apply. If on the other side you do exchange into different currencies and cryptocurrency as well, then those different currencies will implement the mandatory registration, and cryptocurrency you just don't need to report, but you still need to apply for the registration. So if all you do is only crypto operations, as of today, you don't need to apply under the RPAA. Keep in mind that Bank of Canada constantly publishes new regulations. They published at least 8 times this year. So every time something new comes up, we'll keep you updated as the news come up and we know how to deal with them. So how can we assist our clients, existing or prospective future? We at Approved MSB Services work very hardly to make sure that our clients comply with the regulations, whether FINTRAC or Bank of Canada. We make sure that we follow upon all their publications, review the regulations, the law. We can assist from essentially any aspect of registration, starting from incorporation, FINTRAC registration, and currently Bank of Canada registration being the filing the application, paying the application fee, and preparing the updated compliance program. For any other MSBs looking to either start their operations in Canada, register, or develop their business into Canada, we will be happy to assist. We have services that include essentially A to Z registration, starting from the basic incorporation in Canada, all the way to the multiple layers of registration, as I already mentioned, FINTRAC, Bank of Canada, drafting a comprehensive compliance program to suit your particular business needs. If you have more questions or require additional information, please contact us by email or by phone, preferably by email, so we can schedule an appropriate time with you so we can speak during video conference, answer all your questions, provide additional information, and help you with approaching your MSB registration in Canada, either as a new business or as a continuing business under the Bank of Canada.